We now have the APU running, providing electrical power and bleed air to the aircraft, and we can now remove all of our ground services and prepare the aircraft for pushback. To do this, select the Ground Operations button on the tablet, select Ground Connections, verify on the overhead panel that the APU generator is on and providing power, and the APU bleed is on and providing bleed air. Once this is complete, release the ground power. At this point, ground services can be released and the doors can all be closed. Finally, we can remove the wheel chocks. The pushback flow begins with the fuel panel. Turn on all the fuel pumps that contain fuel, leaving the center tank pumps off until AC power is transferred to the generators. Once AC power has been completely transferred to the engine generators as part of the after start checklist, the center fuel pumps can be selected to the correct position. The electric hydraulic pumps should be turned on. The doors verified closed. The flight deck door verified closed. And the transponder set to transponder. We can now execute the pushback checklist. Doors closed. Hydraulic panel set. Fuel panel set. Flight deck door closed and locked. Transponder to transponder. The pushback check is complete. The captain would now call the ground crew, coordinate the pushback, and when ready, tell the ground crew, beacons on, brake is released, cleared to push. For today, we don't require a pushback and we will be starting the engines in our current position and then taxiing forward out of chocks. The engines could normally be started at the clearance of the pushback crew while the aircraft is under tow. Let's get the engine started. Both packs, left and right, should be selected off. The engine control switch, or start switch, for the selected engine, in this case the right or number 2 engine, which is always started first, should be selected to ground. On the engine page, observe N2 rotation and the start valve open light. Start the clock. The starter has a 2-minute duty cycle which should be respected. Once N2 rotation is greater than 25% and has reached max motoring, or less than 1% of N2 increase every 5 seconds, fuel can be introduced by moving the start lever from cutoff to idle. Verify on the overhead that the engine valve and spar valve lights extinguish, and that light off, or EGT rise, occurs within 10 seconds of fuel introduction. The N2 and EGT should steadily rise, while EGT remains below the 725 degree limit indicated by the red tick mark. At 56% N2, the start valve will close, and the light should extinguish. Starter cutout, and start cycle completion is indicated by the red EGT tick mark disappearing from the display. The clock can now be reset, and we can move to the overhead panel. If anti-ice is needed for ground operations, it should be now selected by placing the engine start switch to continuous and selecting the engine anti-ice. In either case, the isolation valve should be closed and the right pack turned on to provide air conditioning to the cabin while the left engine is started. We can now start the left engine in an identical manner. Starter to ground, start the clock, start valve open, and 2 rotation. At 25% and max motoring, introduce fuel, verify that the engine and spar valves open, and ensure EGT light off within 10 seconds of fuel introduction. At 56%, verify that the starter is released and the start valve open light extinguishes. The start valve is complete when the red tick mark on the EGT gauge disappears. That's 2 good starts. Reset the clock so we can time a 2-minute engine warm-up prior to takeoff and verify engine indications of roughly 2, 4, 6, 6 on the gauges. We can now go to the overhead and execute the after start flow. Left and right generators should be selected to on. The probe heat turned on. Engine anti-ice and wing anti-ice turned on if required. Verify all hydraulic pumps are functioning. Turn on the left pack. Place the isolation valve to auto and close the APU bleed, ensuring the dual bleed light extinguishes. Turn off the APU if not required for takeoff performance, and set the center tank fuel pumps as required. The recall should be checked by pressing the recall panel and ensuring that no cautions remain lit, and the takeoff flap setting, in this case 1, should be selected. Once the flow is complete, the after start checklist can be run. Generators are on. Probe heat is on. Anti-ice is not required. The air conditioning panel is set. The recall has been checked, and the auto brakes are set to RTO. The after start checklist is complete. At this point, the captain will call flaps 1, salute received, flaps 1, call for taxi. The first officer will reply flap lever 1 and obtain taxi clearance.